Before James became a name fans could chant, he was the kind of trainee people only notice if they are paying attention to the edges. Not the center yet, not the face on the poster, not the boy standing under the final spotlight. He was movement first, a body learning how to speak before the public ever heard his voice. A kid shaped by rhythm, pressure, airports, practice rooms, and the strange loneliness of being young inside a machine that keeps asking, "Are you ready now? How about now? How about now?" James was not built like a typical idol introduction. His story does not feel clean enough for that. It feels more restless. Taiwan, Bangkok, Korea, different cities, different languages, different versions of himself being trained into one possible future. Before CORTIS, before BigHit finally opened the door, there was the quieter image of a young performer learning how to survive behind the scenes. And that matters, because some idols debut as dreams. James feels like he debuted as evidence. Evidence that years of hidden work can become a public identity overnight. Evidence that a trainee can spend so long creating movement for others that the audience forgets he is also waiting for his own frame. Evidence that talent is not always loud at first. Sometimes it is buried under repetition, sweat, and a mirror that never claps. That is the cold part people do not see. A trainee does not only train skills, he trains patience, he trains silence. He trains the ability to watch other people go first. Every day someone else debuts, someone else becomes viral, someone else gets called the future. And still, you go back to the room, fix the angle, repeat the count, sharpen the line, control the breath. James had the kind of pre-debut aura that makes people curious because it feels unfinished in the right way. Not polished into emptiness, not perfect enough to be boring. There was something kinetic about him, like he was always halfway between thought and motion. That is why his dancer image works. Dance is not only about looking good, it is about control pretending to be freedom. And James needed both. Control, because BigHit was not debuting another boy group into a quiet world. Any boy walking out of that company after BTS and TXT would be measured before he even sang a note. Freedom, because CORTIS could not survive by looking like a copy. So James entered the story with a burden. Most rookies do not carry this early. He had to look new while standing under one of the biggest shadows in Kpop. That is unfair, but it is also the hook. Because James does not feel interesting because he is already untouchable. He feels interesting because he looks like someone still being formed in public. A hidden trainee pushed into open air. A dancer asked to become a character. A young artist carrying the dangerous question every rookie fears. Are they watching because of him or because of the company behind him? Then CORTIS arrived like a dare. Not just another rookie group smiling through a polished debut. Not just another set of boys placed under clean lighting and told to look hungry, grateful, and harmless. CORTIS entered with a stranger promise. Color outside the lines. Break the frame. Look young but not manufactured. Look raw but still expensive. Look free but still perfect enough for BigHit. And that is where James became interesting. Because in a group like CORTIS, the body matters. Movement matters. Energy matters. The audience is not only asking who sings the highest note or who gets the most screen time, they are watching for texture. Who makes the group feel alive? Who makes the chaos look intentional? Who turns a simple step into a signature? James had to be one of those answers. With What You Want, CORTIS did not feel like they were trying to debut quietly. The song carried the attitude of boys who know they are being watched before they have earned everyone's trust. There was confidence in it, but also danger. Because confidence from a rookie can easily become arrogance in the eyes of the public, especially when that rookie comes from BigHit. That name changes everything. A small company rookie can be praised for ambition. A BigHit rookie gets accused of privilege before the first chorus ends. People do not watch them with empty minds. They bring expectations, comparisons, resentment, curiosity, and the impossible question hanging above every frame. Are they good, or are they just protected? James had to perform through that question, and maybe that is why his presence works best when it feels physical instead of verbal. He does not need to explain the pressure. You can read it in the way he moves, sharp, fast, controlled, but still loose enough to avoid looking robotic. He gives CORTIS a kind of restless engine, like the group is not walking into the industry, but pushing against it. That is the difference between a normal rookie and a rookie with something to prove. CORTIS's early identity depends on looking self-made, inside a system everyone knows is massive. That contradiction is the whole story. They are presented as young creators, boys with ideas, taste, personality, and fingerprints on the work. But the public is not stupid. They know there is a company behind the curtain, money behind the styling, strategy behind the freedom. So James becomes part of the test. If he looks too polished, people call him manufactured. If he looks too raw, people question whether he is ready. If he stands out too much, they ask if BigHit is pushing him. If he blends in too well, they ask why they should care. That is the trap of debuting under a giant label. You are visible before you are understood. But visibility is also power, and James knows how to use it. His strength is not only that he can dance, it is that he can make the group's concept feel believable. In a rookie team trying to sell youth, creative friction, and controlled rebellion, James gives the image a pulse. He makes CORTIS look less like a product and more like a crew trying to become a problem. And maybe that is why fans noticed him quickly, not because he had the safest face, not because he was the loudest member, but because he carried motion like a warning. CORTIS did not just debut James. It turned him from a hidden trainee into evidence that BigHit's next generation was ready to be judged. Then came the backlash that every BigHit rookie has to survive. Not a scandal, something colder than that, suspicion. For James and CORTIS, the problem was never only whether they were talented. Talent was almost expected. They came from BigHit, and that name does not allow innocence. It does not let a rookie group walk into the industry like beginners. The second CORTIS appeared, people did not simply ask, "Who are these boys?" They asked, "Why should we trust them?" That is a brutal question to place on young artists who have barely started. But CORTIS were not debuting into a normal room. They were debuting into a room already haunted by BTS, TXT, HYBE power, fan wars, company privilege, and years of K-pop audiences learning to distrust anything that looks too carefully branded as authentic. And James stood right in the middle of that contradiction. He looked raw enough to be interesting, but polished enough to be doubted. He moved like someone with real instincts, but because the machine behind him was so powerful, even his instincts became something people wanted to question. Was he genuinely different? Or had BigHit simply trained him to look different? That is where the criticism becomes poisonous. Because when a rookie from a smaller company looks hungry, people call it passion. When a rookie from BigHit looks hungry, people call it marketing. CORTIS's whole identity was built around creative freedom, youth, and breaking the rules. But the internet loves to attack that kind of image. It asks, how rebellious can you really be when the rebellion comes with expensive cameras, perfect styling, strategic rollout, and the protection of one of the biggest entertainment companies in Korea? For James, that meant every movement could be turned into evidence for either side. Fans saw talent, critics saw privilege. Fans saw a young creator finally stepping into his own spotlight. Critics saw another company-made product being dressed up as self-expression. Fans saw confidence. Critics called it arrogance. Fans saw a dancer with international texture and restless energy. Critics asked whether the hype was bigger than the proof, and maybe that is the most unfair part. James had not been given time to become complicated yet. The public wanted answers immediately. They wanted to know if he was a genius, overrated, manufactured, authentic, pushed, protected, or actually special. But a rookie is not supposed to be a final product. A rookie is supposed to be unfinished, growing, messy, nervous, hungry, still learning where the camera ends and the person begins. But K-pop does not always allow growth anymore. It demands impact. CORTIS had to look ready from day one because the audience had already decided that big hit rookies do not deserve a learning curve. And James, with his pre-debut history, choreography background, and sharp performance identity, became one of the easiest members to project expectations onto. That can turn talent into pressure. Because once people call you a secret weapon, they stop letting you be young. They expect every stage to prove something. Every glance has to carry star quality. Every mistake becomes evidence that the hype was fake. Every quiet moment becomes a question. Is he actually interesting, or did the company just tell us he was? That is not fame. That is surveillance wearing the mask of curiosity. And James's real conflict is not that people hate him. Hate would be simpler. The real conflict is that people are watching him too early, too closely, with too much history in their eyes. They are not only judging James, they are judging Big Hit's future through him. That is a heavy thing to place on one young performer. So the backlash around James is not about one mistake. It is about the danger of being born famous before being fully known. He is not fighting a scandal. He is fighting the suspicion that his spotlight was handed to him before he earned it. Now James stands in the most dangerous place a rookie can stand. Not at the bottom, not at the top, in between. That middle space is where K-pop becomes cruel. At the bottom, people can ignore you. At the top, people are forced to respect you, even if they hate you. But in the middle, when the spotlight is already bright and the identity is still forming, every move feels like a test. Every stage becomes a question. Every compliment sounds like pressure-wearing perfume. For James, the question is no longer only whether he can perform. He already can. The harder question is whether he can become unforgettable without being swallowed by the company that introduced him. Big Hit gives him power, but it also gives him a shadow. It opens doors, but it makes people suspicious of how easily those doors opened. It places him near giants, then asks him to stand like he was never afraid of their size. That is not a normal rookie burden. That is a legacy trap. CORTIS's early image is built on freedom, youth, movement, and creative identity. But freedom is only convincing when the audience believes it has a cost. James now has to prove that his rawness is not decoration. His confidence is not packaging. His artistic instinct is not just a concept written in a meeting room and handed to him under perfect lighting. He has to make people believe the chaos belongs to him. And maybe that is where his future becomes interesting, because James does not need to be polished into another perfect idol. That would be the easiest mistake. K-pop already has perfect idols, beautiful faces, clean lines, safe interviews, viral smiles. What James has is something less comfortable, the feeling of a performer still being assembled in public. He looks like someone learning how much of himself to reveal before the machine turns it into branding. That tension could make him ordinary, or it could make him dangerous. Fans are watching for the moment when he stops looking like the big hit trainee who finally debuted and starts looking like James. Not as a role, not as a weapon, not as proof that CORTIS deserves hype, but as a young artist with a language of his own. The kind of artist whose movement has meaning even when the camera is not trying to sell it. But he has to move carefully. If he grows too fast, people will say he was pushed. If he grows too slowly, people will say he was overhyped. If he looks too confident, they will call him arrogant. If he looks too humble, they will call him manufactured. That is the impossible box built around rookies who debut under famous names. They are expected to be grateful, different, skilled, humble, iconic, and original before they have even had time to become adults. So where does that leave James now? At the edge of proof. Not failure, not victory, proof. He is standing in a group that wants to colour outside the lines while the industry keeps drawing new ones around him. He is part of Big Hit's next chapter, but he cannot survive only as Big Hit's next chapter. He needs his own myth, his own mistakes, his own sound, his own reason for people to look twice. Because HYBE can introduce you. It cannot define you forever. James may have entered CORTIS as a hidden weapon, but weapons are only useful until the battle changes. What he needs now is not more mystery, it is identity, the kind strong enough to answer the question following him since debut. Are we watching James because Big Hit told us to, or because he is becoming impossible to ignore?